Nevertheless, this is where we've all agreed to go, whether
Mm,
we remember it or not. On a spiritual level, this is where we've all agreed to go. So we'll have to deal with it in our own ways, but you know, there's nothing that's going to really stop it at this point. Bashar, in the last, couple of months has said, look, it doesn't really matter much anymore what the outcome of your elections are, what the outcome of your political, social, economic, religious systems are. Contact is now inevitable. It's only a matter of what's the style that contact is going to take, because it's going to adapt itself to whatever we've decided to do here.
mm,
So we all are going to have to face the idea that we're not alone in our own ways. And some people will be okay with that, and some people won't be for a while. But that's the way it's going to go now because it's like a birth. The baby's coming. There's nothing you can do to. You just have
right.
to decide what kind of an environment you're going to experience the birth in. You're going to be freaking out, or you're going to be saying, welcome to the world, Uh, I mean, your own situation is a case in point in terms of the acceleration you're talking about. I mean,
Mm,
like you said, how would you have imagined when you were doing post-production work in the film industry if I told you, well, within the next couple of years, you're going to be having a spiritual podcast, and you would probably look at me like I was crazy. But
mhm,
here you are. And it didn't take very long for you to be where you are doing this. And the
mm,
acceleration that you've experienced having this podcast, from my perspective, has been quite astonishing.
mhm,
So I think
mm,
that even on an individual level, we're all personal examples of the acceleration that we're going to be experiencing collectively as well. Where one moment we're like, no, that can never happen. And then 2 years later, you'll go, this was inevitable. It had to happen this way. And here I am. So,
And you also see, and Daryl, you also see it as well from, I mean, you've been doing this now 40 plus years, and
mhm.
you're more popular now than you have
Mhm.
ever been in the scope of
Yeah.
the last, I mean, before it was like 40 people it was almost like an AA meeting. 40 people, there's some donuts in the corner, and we're gonna channel, or we're gonna talk about some spiritual stuff
Yeah.
in the back of a metaphysical bookstore. But
Yeah. Well,
now
yeah,
that was where it was.
that's the advantage of having also done this for so long, is I can really see the trend from the
Yeah.
beginning to now. It's
Yeah.
very self-evident that it has accelerated. I mean, literally, I don't mean this in any kind of an egotistical way, but literally, I would say in the past year alone, the amount of people that recognize me now on the street, in
Yeah.
the malls, when I go shopping, people, I mean, that to me is a signal that there are more people locking into these kinds of things than we think.
Mhm.
When I'm walking through the mall and people are running up to me and go, oh, you channel Bashar. When I'm in Home Depot and the people that work there walk up to me and go, I know who you are. When I go through airports and the TSA agents look at me and go, I know who you are. It's leaking into society in a way where not everyone's really talking about it, but I'm the one that gets to know that they know what Bashar is all about, what UFOs are all about, because they tell me. So now at this point, this is happening 2 and 3 times a week.
Mhm.
Whereas I would say before, maybe once every couple of months, somebody would have said, "Oh yeah, I recognize you." Now it's like 2 and 3 times a week in bizarre places. Like I said, like the airport TSA people who are screening my luggage and going, they're
Mhm.
looking at me like, "I thought that was you," So like it's getting out there and it's accelerating quite a bit.
I gotta ask you though, how does that make you feel? Just on a human point of view, I mean, the fame and people like looking and recognizing you. Because I've dealt with it as well. I mean, people recognize
Yeah,
me in the street now.
of course.
And it's
Well,
and it's
it's not about the fame. It's about the idea of
no,
recognizing that more and more people know what's going on. See, that's
I
why I
agree.
call the biggest secret that everyone knows, because it's just that no one's talking about it until they find a
Yet.
safe place to talk about it. And they let me know because I'm the safe place. So
Same here.
obvious, yeah,
Same here.
same,
Yeah.
same,
People,
right,
yeah, people,
exactly. Because you're
yeah,
doing
yeah.
this, so they're going to say, Alex, blah, blah, blah. So the more people, and that's the other good thing about doing things like this, the more people that do this, the more people are the kind of people where people feel safe telling them that they also know they've had experiences and that they're doing this and stuff like that. So that's another reason why it's accelerating is more people are talking about these things and being the magnets or the icons that represent that it's okay to talk about this stuff. And then when you filter out in society and people come up to you and go, I recognize you and I know it's safe for me to tell you, I had this experience. I had that experience. That's unifying and accelerating the whole thing because it's like forming a different kind of internet of
Hmm.
people who are the nodal points that people feel safe revealing to them that they had experiences that are similar, that they feel okay talking about that because they don't feel they can talk about it to their friends,
You're
or
right.
their family, but they can talk about it with you. They can talk about it
Hmm.
with me. And the more of us that are out there talking about this stuff, the more places they have to talk about it, and it becomes more okay. So
Yeah.
that's another way things are accelerating.
Do you foresee a world where this becomes mainstream?
Oh,
Like really
absolutely.
mainstream? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the timeline, do you think, for
Oh,
something like that?
definitely. I think definitely after 2050. That's again the human reset is about a 30-year reset from 2020 to 2050-ish. So I
Hmm.
think definitely after 2050, all bets are off in that sense because we'll have had open contact, we'll know all these things are real, and we'll be exploring so many different avenues for evolutionary acceleration that I think by 2050, we're just gonna, this is all, just, yeah, of course, of course, of course, of course. We don't necessarily experience everything we're going to experience by then, but of course, this is all possible now. In the same way, again, the first airplane is like, okay, now we know this is possible. Look how quickly we went from the Wright brothers to supersonic jets and rockets. I mean, really, again, historically, that's an extremely short period of time in our culture to have gone from the first airplane to landing on the moon. I mean,
Oh,
even
so within
even
50 years, yeah, 50, 60
yeah,
years, yeah.
but even when you look at the idea of what we had in 1959, we may have had sci-fi ideas and sci-fi stories about doing that, but until Kennedy said, we're going to land on the moon in this decade, I mean, 10 years from
Hmm.
1960 to 1969, less than 10 years to develop a space program that got us to the moon. That's incredible. And it's a sign of what we can do when we're all focused in one direction.
Hmm.
So I think we're going to see a lot of different areas of our society to represent those kinds of acceleration areas where we're going to see it in different areas of technology. We're on the verge of busting through fusion. We're on the verge of understanding probably free energy. We're on the verge of understanding, discovering other planets where life may be possible. I mean, it's all accelerating in all these different areas at the same time. So I think by 2050, it's just going to be crazy.
To watch the full video, click on the link below. And don't forget to subscribe.